Assalamu alaikum. Um, I'm going to open us up with a Fatiha and then start the episode for today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen. Okay, so we have a disclaimer that we read before we begin our episodes. So I'm going to read the AM 360 disclaimer. The content of the American Muslim 360 broadcast. Sister Martha, can you move the picture? Yeah, thank you. The content of the American Muslim 360 Broadcasting Network is intended for general information and community service purposes only. Views expressed by hosts or guests are their own and not necessarily the official position of AM 360 or the parent corporation, Community Wide Shore Conference, Inc., CWSC, or its board of directors. Content is not designed to provide specific or personal municipal, financial, legal, counseling, or other professional advice. No liability, explicit or implied, shall extend to hosts, AM 360, or CWSC. We encourage you to consult an advisor for your specific circumstances. So, today's episode, again, I want to greet everyone with the greeting of Assalamu alaikum and welcome again to another episode of the 9-Point Plan, a living document for thriving communities.
عليكم
So
السلام.
to date, we have covered topics that go into some insight of what the Imam Muhammad has shared with us for his vision of building complete model community life. And inshallah, today my intent is to move us from discussion and providing an overview now to actually now thinking about strategy, how to now take what we have been discussing for the last 5 weeks and now starting to have the rubber meet the road. So actually now thinking about how we can enact what the Imam has laid out for us, that blueprint. So inshallah today, the episode title is how to conduct a community visioning workshop. So turning the 9-Point Plan into action. That is my goal today, inshallah, to be able to discuss the foundations of how now we begin to implement the Imam's vision that he has really laid out as a blueprint. So first, I think it's always important for us to understand our why. Why are we doing what we are doing? So why visioning matters, particularly in the work that we are responsible for doing, and that is creating holistic community life. Imam Muhammad, he taught us that the community must be responsible for its future. We must sit down together, think together, and plan together. So this visioning workshop or visioning session, whatever words you want to use for it, it encouraged us to hold community discussions, as well as planning meetings through a surer process that allows for us to build consensus around a shared vision for what we want our community to look like, what we want our community to work towards. And this visioning workshop and section, some of the end goals from that is not only having efforts and activities that we can engage in and also, being able to activate strategies. It also allows our communities to be able to practice unity, shared responsibility, again, being rooted in this ideal and concept of mutual consultation or a sure process, and then bringing our collective knowledge, our collective ideas, our intellect together, and working towards this shared goal that we as a community hope to be able to uh, uh, work and towards being able to uh, uh, enact a lot of the kind of foundational requirements that are really required before we even talk about implementing the strategies that we want to build a model community. So just going back and looking at how do we live in the present, right? How do we show up in the present? So I want to begin with just an overview of the steps. And I want this to be interactive. So as I am presenting these steps, if there's a question, please raise your hand, and I will try my best to recognize you, Sister Martha. If you can, help me to recognize those folks who are have their hands raised for
Okay. Well,
to be
well,
recognized,
then.
inshallah.
And I'm going to be writing something down here. I was going to try and use the whiteboard, but I don't
I
dare
understand.
interfere with this construct here. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
I understand. And to Sister Martha, I think that CWSC is well positioned to be able to, if folks want a follow-up or want a more facilitated discussion about how to not only engage, but how to deploy some of the steps that we will be introducing today, they can reach out to you and you can get in contact with me. I'll be glad to meet with anyone and facilitate those conversations to help us um, design these workshops that can help our community begin to go through these visioning sessions. So I think CWSC is well positioned to facilitate those conversations. So step one, I always approach, and I really I do this for every community that I engage, even if it's a community that is addressing crime or addressing housing or trying to build a better built environment. I always start the conversation with what is our purpose, right? The why of you, or the reason why we're in the space, right? And I ask people their why. Why are you here? What do you want to see come from this engagement or this interaction or conversation? And this will be a series. This is not a one-off where this is one conversation that is had, and you feel rushed through the process. Go at the speed of trust, right? The speed that is needed to build that trust, to build alliance, to build collaboration. And that may mean a series of conversations to be able to get people into the space to have conversations that are needed. So I always start with setting the purpose, for the workshop, the meeting, the conversation. Um, um, so for this particular purpose, right, we're talking about building model communities, and we know that this is not going to happen in a year time frame or a 2 year time frame. This is envisioning or developing a process or a vision for 5, 10, 20 years out, right? 20 years out. This is what developers do. When developers approach the city, or any municipality or jurisdiction that they have to go to for approval for their projects. It could be a subdivision, it could be whatever development is, like a hotel. I mean, just pick any type of development. They have been in the planning stages 20 plus years. One, because they're going through the process of feasibility, right? To see if this project is feasible for the area that they are intended to build. A lot of times we want to move so quickly. We want to go from concept of vision immediately into implementation. And a lot of times we skip steps and we find ourselves faltering. We find ourselves falling off. We find ourselves not continuing to be motivated because we haven't allowed ourselves to go through the necessary steps. And a lot of that means learning, educating ourselves on what is needed, right? What we have, what we do not have, and being able to bring the necessary resources to the table to help us to be able to shore up what we do not have, to be able to reinforce what we do have. So that's what I mean about our visioning process, um, being a forecasting for 10, 20, 25 years out, right? What our community is going to look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, so that we can begin to look at all of the aspects that are needed to realize any plan that we want to enact and engage. So the setting the purpose allows space and it allows room to have those conversations about short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals and objectives. And later on, right? Maybe not this particular episode, but a future episode, we're gonna go into some details about how to create smart objectives, right? Those smart objectives that are specific, they're measurable, they are articulate or attainable, right? The goals that you are setting are realistic and attainable, and that it has a time bound to it, and that you can measure if you are moving towards achieving that particular goal. So SMART goal. So I'm not going to go into details about the specific aspects of setting and designing and developing SMART goals. It's going to be a separate episode that we will dive deeper into that. But that visioning that we will be hoping to introduce our community to will help us to be able to identify realistic goals that meet the standards of being a smart objective or a SMART goal. So that is step one. So setting the purpose, allowing ourselves some grace and space to be able to think long term, to be able to not only think short term, because a lot of times we just think immediately. We have something that we want done, and we think about what we need to do to get it done, right? So we need to think not only in the short term, but the midterm, that 5, 10 year process. And then the long-term process, that 20, 25-year process. So setting a purpose allows us the space to be able to think about these different phases, right? It's different phases to these steps, and they're layered. And we need to be purposeful in how we think about them. And we need to be intentional about how we include them into our vision. About our community development. The second step is that, and we naturally do this in everything that we do as a community. We ground everything we do in our spiritual awareness, right? Our spiritual grounding. So this sure process allows us to be able to move forward in that shared religious work that we know we need to achieve in building community life, and that it is faith based, right? That our work is faith supported, and that it is faith based. So that is usually the second step, or really the first step, and then we move into the purpose of why we are meeting. And the reason I say, I think we all have experience when we don't open up meetings with some religious grounding. We know that it can lead to a lot of arguments, right? It can lead to a lot of conflict within conversations, right? So we hope that by having that spiritual grounding at the beginning of the process, that it rights our mindset, and focus us on the intent on why we're in this space. And then the purpose just reinforces that spiritual grounding that we all need to be reminded of, particularly when we're passionate about particular challenges that our community are facing, and we need to deal with them in a systematic way. The third step is walking the participants through a concept that I like to call our hopes and concerns. And basically, this activity allows people, right, space, right? We're not shutting down people and their contribution to the process. We want to encourage that. So this hope and concern activity allows people the room in the space to be able to identify their hope for the community and their concern, right? For the community. And this allows everyone to be able to participate. Usually when I do hope and concern activities, we always have, right, people who take up a lot of space in the conversation, and we have some people that retract. They do not participate, or they stay quiet, right? In these types of activities. So a lot of times, we have to be flexible in how we engage our community around soliciting their input. So not only having the opportunity for people to vocalize their concerns, but also allowing space for people to write down. So I usually ask people to write down one hope for their community, and then one concern that they think need to be addressed before that hope can be realized, right? And what that allows is a lot of people to get their frustration, their frustrations voiced at the very beginning of the process, because I have seen this work. One, because people can relieve the tension that is in it that comes with this kind of work very early on in the process, and that is not being held on. And then when you get to the strategy development aspect of the project, or aspect of realizing the visioning, then those feelings, those discontent, right, those misgivings and mistrusts that people bring into the space do not rear their heads in a very ugly way, right? Not saying that people's concerns are not valid, but this process allows them to be able to vocalize that very early on in the process, and we can deal with it, right? By saying and acknowledging, yes, this is a concern, before we can get to realizing the hope for the community. We first must deal with this concern that has been brought up, that may be a challenge to our work. So this allows for the community to be able to walk through a systematic process of dealing with challenges in the community that always come up, uh, and can hinder a lot of movement towards being able to uh, realize an action plan that the community. So these are steps that are moving you towards a shared vision for your community. So acknowledging everyone's participation, everyone's hopes, and everyone's concern, and how you ensure that you solicit everyone's input is that you have different ways in which people can engage that process. So they can vocalize verbally their hopes and their dreams and their aspiration for the community, as well as those concerns that they feel may hinder those hopes and dreams and aspirations. And then also being able to allow people to write and submit that in writing. And I usually don't move to the fourth process or the fourth step until we have an opportunity to fully analyze this hope and concern activity. So really, after step 3, that should be the whole meeting. The first meeting that you have should stop really at the hopes and concern activity. Once that activity happens, then we need to go and analyze, right? And there's processes that you can go through to analyze all of the contributions that have been made. These are not quantitative data points. They're qualitative data points. So there's ways that you can deal with qualitative data, being able to collect those, being able to now look for recurring themes within ideas that have been shared or hopes or that have been shared in the community. So a lot of times what I do for the hope, after the hope and concern activity, I then paste these. Usually you have people write them on a notepad or a sticky note, post-it note, so that you can place them on a wall or on a whiteboard or something like that. Then you can start identifying themes that each of these ideas fall into. And you categorize each of the ideas that have been shared under a theme. Then you identify the themes of concerns, all of the concerns. Then you categorize all of the concerns into themes. Bring everyone back, right? These are collective. This is a collective activity. You're doing this analysis while folks are still present. You collect the information, then you analyze the information right there. Once you have your categories of your hopes and dreams and aspirations, and those categories for those concerns that may hinder, right, what people ideas are. Once you get those, right, kind of in categories, then you want to have conversations around how do we begin to address the concerns that have been placed under particular themes. And a lot of times it's recurring. These are concerns that people have been vocalizing for a long time. So we kind of know what they are. And I'm just going to use an example. Sometimes it could be leadership. It could be youth participation. You hear that a lot. So you just create these broad categories and you put these concerns under those categories. Then the question is asked, how do we address these concerns? You go through the exercise of identifying strategies in which to address the concerns, right? What this is doing is moving people through a process of not only identifying the challenges in communities and the concerns in communities, but also identifying the strategy in which to deal with the concerns. So this is consensus building, right? This is Shura around, okay, we have identified X amount of concerns. We have now categorized these concerns, and these are the strategies in which we are going to deal with deal with these challenges in our community. And once we agree that these are the strategies that we're dealing with those concerns, every time that concern is mentioned moving forward in the future, we remind the participants we have a strategy to deal with that, because we all agree that this is the strategy in which we're going to deal with this particular concern. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, we have members of our community that want to stay stuck in the challenges, and they do not want to move forward. And they will keep the community there, discussing the challenges and never moving towards the solution. So this hopes and concern activity moves us into identifying strategies to deal with the concerns, so that we don't get bogged down later on in our strategy development in the challenges of our community that always keep us from moving forward and enacting and being able to strategize for the betterment of our community. Once everyone has a good understanding of the hopes, the concerns, and strategies to deal with the concerns, now you want to break out, right? Now you're going to have a breakout session or breakout groups. You want to break everyone up into groups. And there's different ways in which you can break everyone up in groups. They can identify the interests that they're more passionate about, or you can have people call out a number and then that group, that topic represent a certain number, and then those folks that is assigned that number go to that specific group. But there you can go through your own process on identifying how people are going to self-select or randomly selected to participate in a group focus group or a group discussion around a particular topic. So they're going to have these breakout sessions now. They're going to talk about those hopes and dreams that they had, right? About where they want the masjid to go in 5, 10, 20, 25 years. So, for example, it could be the masjid, right? Developing the masjid, organizational development for the masjid. It could be education and youth, economic development, neighborhood planning, social services and health. So these are just some topics, right? Suggested topics. But it could be, this concern and really hopes and dreams will bring out your topics. So you break everyone up into groups, and they will have discussions around how those hopes and dreams fit into these categories, and how can you now weave those hopes and dreams into those specific categories. You want to these breakout rooms should have specific questions that they need to answer. For example, what do we want to build? Right. So each one of those groups that are addressing the specific topic, they want to answer the question, what do we want to build? What do we want to improve? What is missing? And what would encourage us to work in this space? And the idea behind this is that this would generate and stimulate robust ideas that then you can once people come out of the breakout sessions, this is where now you're starting to form your ideas. You're starting to form concepts. You're starting to get into some of the meat of where you want to go as a community by answering those specific questions. Step 5, you are moving into a visioning exercise. And this visioning exercise, you are now taking those ideas that are coming that are coming out of the group section, and you are going to prioritize them. So now you come back as a group, a collective group, and you're going through this visioning exercise. You can't do everything that comes out of those groups, but you can prioritize one or two of the ideas or concepts, right? Not saying that you get rid of everything, right? But you only have so much that you could, capacity, so much you can do in a period of time that you have. So your groups, you want to now do some visioning exercise or prioritizing one or two activities or one or two ideas that are coming out of those group sessions. A lot of times in your visioning sessions, when you identify the top activities or the top concerns that you want to address, you should be mapping, right? I always tell people power map. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Power map, asset map, but you should be looking at resources, what the community has, what the community doesn't have, who needs to be involved in the conversation, particularly around those areas that you are those topics that you are prioritized. You should be now mapping that topic, looking at if the city needs to be involved, or if this is if the masjid only activity, or do you need other involvement of outside groups or external what I like to call allies, external allies. So your external allies could be your city, it could be your county, it could be your housing authority, it could be your neighborhood association, those outside entities that can come and work alongside you. So you need to do that mapping, right? So that you can identify who else need to be involved in the conversation because now you're creating your vision. So now you need to consider who else need to be involved when you begin to realize your vision, because you don't want your vision to be short-sighted of any element or requirement that is needed for your project. I see that happen a lot in communities where communities are not considering every aspect when it comes to a project that they desire in helping to improve the quality of life of their neighborhood. They fail to consider everything. And what happens, I'll give you the perfect example. I'm working with a community now, downtown Charleston. They want to tell a different history of their community because they felt like not only the city, but other people was not telling the correct history of their community. So they wanted to not only have a virtual tour of the history of their community, but they also wanted to have a walking tour. They had a great vision for what they wanted, but they did not think through every aspect of their of what they wanted to achieve. So they went to the city and said, we want to do this walking tour, and we want to place some signs and things on city property. And the city had to tell them it's not that simple. There's city approval processes. You have to work with the city on the signs. You have to go through the historic commission to be able to get the language that you want to put on the sign approved. And they just could not understand why they had to go through all these hoops. So I had to explain to them that when you're working on or planning to use city property, you have to go through their process. Although that part may be in the name of one of the residents that was part of this neighborhood, it is still city property, and you still have a process you must go through. So this community's walking tour has been impacted because they was hoping to launch their tour in January. And we're still working through the approval process for this walking tour for a downtown community because they was short-sighted in all of the requirements that was necessary for them to get this tour approved. So that's just one example. Imagine if our community has a vision to build a masjid from the ground up. I hear this all the time. We want to build a masjid from the ground up. And people, right? And it just boggles my mind sometimes when people, even in the masjid, have conversations around, oh, we can just tear this building down and we can just build the building back. And I'm just thinking through my, thinking like it's not that easy. It's not that easy. You have processes that you must go through and follow before you can do anything on a piece of property. Even though you own that property, it's still processes and procedures that you must go through. And I see a lot of masjids get caught up in renovation projects that are not permitted, etc. And they get in some major challenges that is a financial burden to the community because they listened to someone in their congregation that told them that this can proceed without going through the proper protocols. So that's what I mean about stepping through this process and stepping through it intentional, strategically, so that you are not having any missteps, because it can be costly to a community when you're not fully thinking through every element of an idea. And it could be a simple idea, but still it may involve other processes and procedures that may need approval. So I want us to understand that we need to walk through these simple steps to get us to being able to envision what it is that we want. So we step through the being able to now identify and prioritize those activities that we want. Now, right, once we have those, I would say no more than four, right? No more than four ideas that we have prioritized. Then now we went through the mapping exercise of really looking at what is needed to realize these particular prioritized tasks. Now we go into further analysis, right? This is where we get into looking at gap analysis, SWOT analysis, right? These are just some simple analysis that can help us identify resources, help us identify experts that we're going to be, we're going to need, even identify the experts even within our community, and what level of expertise lies in our community to be able to help move some of these ideas and concepts and strategies forward. So I want to stop there and see if we have any I know I presented a lot, but I want to stop there and see if we have any questions or any comments on visioning exercises, visioning workshops. So I want to make myself available to answer any questions that people may have. Yes.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. God's peace be upon you. And I know for one who has gone through this process, it doesn't make it easier. And it doesn't, because number one, you have personalities and you have this wish thing and time factor. Many will say, well, I don't have that many years left in my life to be engaged. But the point is having it documented.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that others can, at least skeleton wise or what have you, they can pick it up and they can improvise or what have you, but they have some structure to go by, some blueprint, I
Yes,
call
ma'am.
it. Um, and you're right, being dug out in the community, walking and seeing things done, it takes patience. And that's why we have fasting up here on the board, because fasting develops patience.
Yes, ma'am.
It helps us. So my question to you is, in the process here, I was typing down because I can see it becoming learning labs with workshop style. Let me go to question I had. You mentioned oh connect to connect. One moment.
Yes, ma'am. But yes,
Here. Okay.
while you find your question, Sister Martha, you are
Uh-huh.
correct. This is a process to document, right? So that everyone is walking through this step. And there are feedback loops, right? Intentional feedback loops, so that no one can say, I was left out of the process. I didn't agree to this. It's constant feedback loops we agree that this is what we discussed, this is what we decided, and we agree we're moving to the next step. And then the constant feedback loop. So yes, this is documenting the process.
Alhamdulillah. And believe you me, that does call for, uh, no matter where it's written on, people have put things on scrap paper and not known that this name here matters, that they had a voice in the process.
That is correct.
They are no longer here, but their family is here. And that matters when we speak about history. So
That is
so
correct.
thank a lot for you walking through it. And like you said, short term. That's what I was going to go to. Short term and midterm. That you as you in the group, the breakout groups. That means that group can work on, while one is working on short term, others may be able to go on to the midterm because of their
Not
focus.
Yeah, not yet. Not at this stage,
That's what
sister.
I want to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
not at this stage. This stage is a visioning stage. You are
Okay.
documenting what you're trying to do is create a shared vision. You're
Okay.
trying to prioritize the activities, right? That's going to help you achieve that shared vision. And the first exercise that in this visioning process is concerns. It is hopes and concern. And basically that hope and concern is going to get at that aspect that always trip us up. We're ready to, we have all agreed that we're going to do this. We're ready to implement, and somebody pops up and say, I got an idea. My idea wasn't heard. I got a concern. My concern is this. How are we going to move to this when leadership is not, I'm just using this as an example. Leadership haven't done this. All these things start rearing their heads. You want to deal with that before you start putting your vision on paper, right? You want to identify people's hopes, dreams, aspiration for your community, their concern that they believe is going to be a hindrance to that hope and that aspiration. And then you all are going to have a collective conversation, right? The community is going to have a collective conversation around the strategy to deal with the concern that they say is going to be a hindrance. So every time that concern is brought up, the response is, we have identified a strategy to deal with that concern, right? And you remind them of the strategy.
And unfortunately, hindsight is 2020.
I
Many
understand. I
communities
understand.
have, and I was involved in one, have separated because well, in our instance, it was the board, and we felt like, okay, if the board is the problem, we'd rather sacrifice ourselves, step out of the way, let a new board come on in, and we go on and venture with the dealing with the city effect part of everything to guard them from what they could not see.
I understand. And a
Alhamdulillah.
lot of times, Sister Martha, we're asking folks to serve in a role that they may not be familiar with, knowledgeable of. So a lot of times when we're asking people to serve on a board, they should know what the expectation of that role, right? So we, even when we are talking about board development, we need to go through this same visioning process about what is the board, what is my role as a board member, what is my why of serving on this board, right? That will help people be able to process, do I have the capacity and skill sets to serve, right? And it's okay to say I don't have it. It's okay. And then if the board has that tolerance to deal with the lack of knowledge, then that means there has to be some concurrent training, some educational development of those board members to help them to be able to grow into that role, right? And that's okay too, right? But you have to be able to understand who is serving on your board, what are they bringing, do they meet the needs, and if they do not, can we bring in the knowledge base to be able to help them grow into that role. And a lot of times there are plenty of folks out here that do organizational development work, leadership development work, board development work, and there's free resources out here that you can find when it comes to doing board development. Annual retreats are a good strategy in helping your board members become more effective in the role that they serve. And I
Well,
saw
that's what that's somebody else
Edward.
hand. Okay.
Yes, I saw
Yeah,
Brother
that's
Edward
what we
had his
were
hand, so I wanted to make
missing.
sure I get to him. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, Martha, you were saying
Thank
something?
you.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, and unfortunately, that's what we were missing. And we can pinpoint back in time where our children went astray from our community because of that. Like I say, hindsight is 2020, but it was very impacting upon our
Yeah,
connectivity.
yeah. That's why we want to deal with those challenges in the visioning session, right? And really, you're walking people through this conflict resolution process without them even knowing it's a conflict resolution process, right? You're not even telling them we're dealing with conflict right off the top when we're talking about this hope and concern exercise. It's basically a conflict resolution. You're not telling people that, but it's basically a conflict resolution strategy. Yes, Brother Edwards, I saw your hand come up, and I want to make sure I got to you.
Assalamu alaikum, Omar.
Walaikum
In your
salam.
discussion, you actually probably answered 80% of my question.
Okay.
So, because it's really about the formation, training of, and in some cases, removal of people from the process.
Yeah.
And the understanding from the beginning that everybody who starts on this process, along the way, you may find out this is not for you.
Yeah.
And how transparent, especially in a tight knit community, like a lot of ours are, where everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
How transparent do you feel it needs to be, or less transparent, when you are going to offload someone because they're part of no progress being made? How do you envision, and how have you seen it handled or handled it yourself?
Yeah. So yes, that's why it's important to have some governance structure, particularly when you're dealing with like board development. So your bylaws usually will deal with those areas on how folks are recruited and seated on your board, how folks are removed, their terms that they serve, et cetera. So a lot of that can be resolved with your bylaws. But for organizations like in our community, sometimes they're loosely structured. So a lot of times what it's going to mean is putting a lot of this down on paper and not going from people memory, right? So being able to have some agreed upon um, agreements, right? This is why this committee is being formed. This is the work that we're going to do. These are the expectations of the members that are serving on this committee. Um, um, and if you cannot serve in that role, right, or if you fail to meet the obligations that are outlined in this committee structure, then these are the off ramps, right? And there can be different ways in which you off ramp a person if they are challenging the process. But I think that it should be an open and transparent process, particularly when we're dealing with a community vested project or a open process like what we are describing, envisioning model communities and developing a strategy, envisioning workshop for that. This is the point, right? This is the stage of conversation that you then want to say, how do we deal with situations where we all agree, right? Or most of us agree, but we still have that one, two, three, maybe, some people who just going to be a problem. How do we deal with that as a community? So there have to be some shared responsibility on how you off ramp people from the process, because you are going to have some people that just for various reasons want to be a hindrance to the community's progress, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yes, brother.
I was thinking in my head that your transparency is going to be an issue if the person that you are going to off ramp happens to be the wife of the imam.
Right, right.
Somehow she's going to have an illness that is going to not allow her to serve something, right? I mean, you're going. That is just a reality, and other people might be treated differently in those scenarios. So one of the things that I think about, and you kind of give me your feedback on this, because we talk a lot of times about, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody else, is I create job descriptions, roles for people.
Yeah.
Do you understand what your role is, your responsibilities, sign here, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, and this had to be brought to my attention several years ago, what's the responsibility of the group or the organization to the individual?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
From day one, what is the organization's responsibility to you? What's the group's responsibility to you? And that language needs to be down on paper just as strongly as the other side, right? And in those, we don't really have negotiations, I don't think, within our community, because we're supposed to be this one mind ummah type of thing that we're all moving toward the same direction, but people's personalities are different.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes that if you're the lead person, if you've been given the responsibility to lead a project, and then you're talking to people in the community about serving on that particular project, it'd be good to have some one-on-ones with people and really understand why they would even want to serve, like you were saying, their big why. And that there's why they want to serve is going to fit.
Yeah.
And that discussion with them, if they're kind of shaky, you definitely don't want to dissuade them, but you kind of have that conversation and you say, if at any time you don't feel like this is going the way that you would want it to go, let's sit down again.
Yeah.
And maybe we can figure out a different way for you to serve or something along those lines. And I only say that because I know that you do that in your work. I know this is probably a part of what you do, and you would eventually get to this in the conversations that you're having with us. But I've just seen that play out recently in 3 or 4 different situations that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head about not only being a two-way process, right? Expectations laid out both ways, what the organization, role and responsibility is, and what the individual role and responsibility is. But another strategy, and I think, and we will get to this, one strategy that can lay all of this out and deal with things that we know are going to come up, maybe even things that we're not even thinking about, is walking these processes even through a logic model, right? So we can take things out of our head and onto paper. Another tool that I use a lot when I'm working communities through this process, and particularly selecting people to serve, right? It could be on a committee or a board or advisory role or whatever, is using a set uh, a rubric, right? That this is what we're looking for. These are the qualities that we're looking for, and does this person in their response to a series of questions, do they fit well into this rubric, right? And the rubric has scores that you give, right? It's objective, and you cannot, right, because it's the imam's wife, give her a higher score because you like her, right? Her score is based on where her response lays, on the rubric, and whatever the resulting score is, the resulting score. And if she's below the threshold, she's not selected, right? Or whomever it is not selected. So there are strategies and processes that we can use to uh, I wouldn't say eliminate totally, but it can help us to avoid a lot of conflict down the road. So I find rubrics are a really good tool of selecting people for roles. I use that a lot when I'm in the contracting space and I need to select someone for a specific task, right? I ask for their resume. We have a rubric that we have designed for that specific task. And if their resume falls within the scoring criteria for that rubric, they're selected. If it doesn't, they're not selected, right? So it's an objective way of being able to choose the right people that you need for a particular process. And I find when I use a rubric, I'm able to find the best people for that particular role or that particular project. When I do not use the rubric and I go off my own, feelings or something about someone, I find out that person is not the best fit, and I have a lot of challenges, with that selectee. So I stick with rubrics when it comes to selecting people for specific roles. One, because it's objective, and you're removing your personal feelings for a particular individual, a person. But yeah, I mean, I think that these are just steps in which we can use to avoid a lot of the pain. And I think Sister Martha brought this up earlier about our young people, right? When they were younger in our community, saw us struggle with these things, and it led to a lot of argument, a lot of resentment, a lot of just conflict in our community because we didn't follow a systematic way to come to decision making. And I think it's just my opinion. I think that the process that was discussed today is just one of many processes that we can go through as a community to begin to move into realizing what the imam has stressed for us, this development of a model community. It's 9 o'clock, and I just want to make sure we don't have any last minute kind of questions that anyone has.
If I may make a comment, and this is for development and growth for our truly internally. because I know I used to think too, okay, we're Muslim, we have the Quran, we have the example of Prophet Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him. But in that statement, well, I would find that myself, I'm still playing on working with my emotions.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not wanting to call, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't let, when you have to make a decision, don't let your emotions lead you, guide you. But we still find that, oh, this will be all right
Yeah.
until, and then not writing certain things down with an agreement. So
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, thank you so
Yeah.
very, very much.
And using, I mean, you brought up an excellent point, and I may have to, do a session on this, emotional intelligence, right? How to deal with our emotions when we are in disagreement. So, and a lot of times, I mean, just to save your own mental health, sometimes it's best to step away, right? Step away from that situation so you can gather yourself. Because we do, and I'm guilty of it. We do react from an emotional a standpoint, particularly when we feel like we have been hurt, right? We do react emotionally. So a lot of times we just have to step away and step back from that process to allow ourselves to come back in sync, right? And then re-engage, right? At a level that we're comfortable with, to be able to avoid future conflicts, future, emotional outbursts. I'm guilty of it because we're human. I think a lot of us have experienced that. But I agree with you, Sister Martha. We need to have more discussions about emotional intelligence and how we deal with our emotions when we are hurt, or we deal with our emotions when we're passionate about something. That's a good suggestion. And I could talk to you later about if that is something that fits well into this discussion around emotional intelligence and being able to navigate that process. I have been introduced to that strategy in community development. One, because communities can get real emotional when it comes to challenges that they're facing, because they have a myriad of different challenges, right? It's just not the challenges of why the city. I dealt with this as a city planner. We're there for a specific purpose, a specific reason, and the community has a lot of things that they want the city to address, but we're not there, right? All the departments to address that is not in that space to be able to deal with that at the time, and that leaves the community frustrated because they feel like the city is not responding to them in a timely manner. So I have been on both sides of that. So I think, yeah, I think that's a good topic. I think that I need to think through, maybe even with you, about how we can do a session on emotional intelligence and dealing with that, because that's going to come up as well. That's why I do that activity of concern and hopes,
Mm-hmm.
to deal with the emotions of past hurts, and because we bring that baggage with us. I mean, we are microcosm of the general population that makes up America, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are part of that, and we bring that baggage with us, in the masjid and in our conversations and etc. So that exercise that I talked about hopefully deals with some of that. And I think, yeah, you bring up a good point. My mind is kind of processing and thinking through what you are talking about emotional intelligence.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. And that does it for me on my question. And you can close out of how you like. and I'll reclaim host seat
Yes,
so that
ma'am.
I can do. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
going on mute.
All right. So I just want to end our discussion with our greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum. And I look forward to next week conversation about another strategy that we can use to be able to move from now visioning and now beginning to think about how do we now uh, put this vision on paper and then move into analysis, right? This gap analysis, SWOT analysis, and I may have to break this up in two episodes to do gap analysis as one episode, and then SWOT analysis as a separate episode because I think both of them can be used in the conversations that we are having, and there's others, right? These are not the all the strategies that are out there. There are many different types of strategies, but I find these two to be the one that communities respond the best to, and not it doesn't overwhelm them with a lot of jargon and et cetera, that they have to have overcome a lot of knowledge hurdles. So inshallah, next week we will have a conversation on analysis, and I'll probably start with gap analysis and then move into SWOT analysis because I think gap analysis will help you to be able to think clearly through a SWOT analysis, and then being able to use both of those to then walk through a logic model. And then when I get to the logic model, Sister Martha, I'm probably going to share my screen so I have some documents to share and walk people through actual logic model.
Great, great. Alhamdulillah. Thank you
Okay.
so very
You're welcome.
much. Shall I make announcements now?
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
good.
You can make
Okay.
announcements now. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Everyone, please plan. This is the continuation of CWSC strategic planning, go figure, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesdays 1 to 5, between the hours of 1 to 5. You can check in and see when we're there. And Thursdays 2 to 6, between the hours of 2 to 6. We were looking forward to having Imam Talib Sharif come on as we're asking organizational leaders to come on and share their connection with CWSC AM 360 and how we can assist in their future endeavors, inshallah, God willing. And at the same time, then later today being Wednesday, it is Halal Industries, Do for Self, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Another organizational strength that we're connected with, and you'll hear more about that information at that time. Uh, I put the acronym in front of you, BITHI, BITHI, and we'll tell you more about that later, inshallah. And then we go to 7 to 8 to 7 to 9 p.m. The CEO of American Muslim 360 presents Narrative Aspirations. And you will see what she presents in the first hour, and usually a sharing of in a lecture from Imam Warith Deen Mohammed, rahimahullah. And that takes us through Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. God's peace be upon you. And join in with other relative presenters on other mediums. One being, I just got information on, I don't know much about, but I'm going to share the information. And thank you, Michael Hameen, for the BISMI, acronym BISMI, and then WDM, BISMI, WDM. And of course, A New Day for Al Islam Community Radio. That's with William Kareem, 10 to 1. The presenter today is going to be speaking on, sharing on hadiths in plural. And that's Imam Sheikh Shakur. That number is 971-379-9162. And Bismi, let's see here. Bismi is, you can go on, let's see, the dial-in number is 401-648-9222. Again, 401-648 9222. And there's no pin required, as with New Day for Al Islam Community Radio, no pin required with that. As always, with the conveners or with Mosque Cares, with Study Al Islam, stay connected. Muslim Culture Con. Do you have any information on Muslim Culture Con to share with us, Imam Omar? Muslim Culture Con.
No, ma'am, but I can reach out to Sister Jada and her
Okay.
husband to see if they have any information they want to share.
Okay, please do. Thank you so very much. Our our strategic planning continues to next week, which will be the last Wednesday and Thursday of the month. And we know, I don't know when Thanksgiving is being recognized. Is that this week? That's tomorrow? Or that's next
27th,
20,
27th, I believe.
20,
The last Thursday.
27th. Okay. Yeah, so that will be next week. Thank you, Michael. Did you have a comment, Michael? Please, by all means.
Yes, in regards to BISME, we have a number of readings of Imam Muhammad's logic and language um, pres presented by groups that, like for instance, on AM 360 platform, we have contemplations of Imam Deen Mohammed, the reading of the Ramadan sessions, 4 volumes that are produced by Ronald B. Shaheed. And this Vismi is Ishmael Fahmy and those working with him, the reading of the latest compilation of Imam Muhammad's commentaries, entitled "The Treasure, the Treasure Beneath the Wall." Thursdays with Imam Muhammad. It's a large volume presentation, and they are reading from the book, just as on Saturdays we have Imam Mikhail Sahir reading from the Quranic commentaries of Imam Muhammad. So that's the nature of the presentation. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Yes, the more the merrier, y'all. None of us know when we're no longer going to be here. So we want to take advantage of everything, inshallah. And is there a replay number for Bismi?
Uh, I don't know of that.
Okay,
Is Ishmael oftentimes join us? Do you see him in the
let's see.
participant?
Ismail, if he's like, let's see. He usually is. Let's go down here. He's usually working, and we don't want to
That's right.
catch him up a pole and try to answer
Yeah,
his phone at
yeah.
the same time. Right? Okay, so inshallah, I'll send him a text and get him to come on and present for us. Thank you, Michael.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, everyone, that does it for now until 1 p.m. Inshallah, we will connect with Imam uh, uh, Talib Sharif. Just know that he gave his confirmation, but we know, like anyone, they're busy. We were even down to asking for 15 minutes if you can, and he was driving. He was going somewhere when he was speaking with me last Thursday. So and Sunday he was on for our presentation here on American Muslim 360 with the Commander Lyndon Bilal, as they spoke about MAVA. So he's very much involved. But the gist of what we wanted to hear, what he wanted to present, was connected with the Clara and American Muslim 360 having a presence there, CWSC AM 360 having a presence there at the Clara, and how that could look. We will go, speak behind the scenes to figure that out. But praise be to Almighty God. We I know it's not a but. We're looking forward to that. New Medina is another. We look to being participants in the retreat 2026, inshallah, their 40th 40th year recognition and development and continuing to be developed. Then there's Imam Abdul Aziz of Bronx, New York, there at Masjid Adam, the Life Center, Community Life Center for Human Excellence. They're looking to have also the presence of CWSC AM 360 in their facility. And we can see this going around the country, inshallah, whether that's a screen, a television monitor screen there where you present all of the presenters that comes on AM 360 and other mediums. So this is why we're wanting to connect, truly connect, lift each one up, and that way we too are lifted, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Stopping recording.
Alaikum assalam.
And